23 seconds.
Yep, we hear you too. Hey everyone, it's time again for Drummer Nation Live, the show where we talk about drums and drumming with some of the greats in the world. And I have a few with me today. Rich Thompson from Eastman School of Music
Yes.
and Harold Jones, who just said yes. So stick with us and we'll get going, and I'll be right back with my two guests. Let's get rolling. It's time for Drummer Nation. All right, everyone. Thanks for joining me. I have two guests today. You know, I did like 100 interviews, and then I decided I would like to do some something for a live show that wasn't just me, and I just have some of my friends come on. I got the idea from some Zoom meetings that people have been hosting to get us all through COVID, and so I've had some wonderful guests. We just lost Harold, but he'll be in and out, I think. Welcome, first of all, Rich Thompson. How are you, Rich?
Great to see you, Michael.
Same here. Now you're in summer break up there at Eastman?
Well, yeah, we're actually, you can see my hat. We're actually in Rochester Jazz Fest, International Jazz Fest week. So I've been getting to hang out with several of my friends, old and new. And then we start an Eastman Jazz summer camp for 2 weeks, Monday. So you can call it a break, but we just call it something different.
Something different. Harold's trying to get in, so this is my favorite.
I hear you.
You hear us?
I don't see you. Yeah.
Okay, can you get your camera working? You just well, you have to select the camera when you come in. But keep trying, and we can at least talk to you if we don't get the video. But you know, I set this up so it's not an interview. I want you guys to just chime in with whatever you like, and I have some videos on each of you. So one of the things you both have in common is the Basie band. When did you do it, Rich?
I did it in 96 and 97.
Yeah, Harold, you did it a few years before then, didn't you? I think Harold's getting in and out of this. Anyway, Harold is one of the legendary Basie drummers, wouldn't you say, Rich?
I would say so, because when I did the band, I know that Sonny Payne and Joe Jones and Harold Jones were the drummers that I checked out the most.
Right. He's one of the ones that if you did that band, you better do your homework. And Harold was one of the ones you needed to check out. And
absolutely.
So he's become a good friend of both of us. You know, during COVID, you did the same thing I did. You started a hang.
And, yeah, for 2 years running, I did it. And I only stopped it because I never got a Tuesday night off.
Well, that's a good thing. I had mine on Monday nights, and we're still running at it. But the idea, yours was mostly educators, and not all, but some.
Not all. I mean, a lot of them, like Harold, was there. People like Victor Lewis and Lewis Hayes dropped by, and Hammer was there, and
Bill Goodwin.
So many different people. Billy Hart, who does both, as a lot of us do, and then. You know, all the usual suspects like John Riley and Adam Nussbaum. And
right. And many of those guys went to my meeting. The reason I should explain that I was under the impression that people should pay to have access to guys like that. So I wasn't going to ask them to come on the air every week like that. So I just set it up as a hang where they could drop in and drop out, no notice needed. And that was kind of how yours was.
That's exactly how I set it up. And, I did end up recording about the first year and a half of it at the urging of Kenny Washington, but not to ever release it for anything commercial, but just because we didn't know what was going to happen at that point. And then I stopped recording it in January of this year.
So, well, I encouraged a lot of friends to participate in something like this. It doesn't matter if you're in a Needlepoint or Harley Davidson's, you know, find some of your friends. Maybe not as much now with COVID coming to an end, but find some of your friends and see if you can bring them in and to something like that. Now, there he is, Harold Jones. Can you hear us and see us now, Harold?
I can hear you and see you.
There you go, man. 21st century at its finest. Well, I don't know if you missed my introduction. I introduced you as one of the most important bassy drummers to ever grace the stage with that band. He's being humble, or he's cut off again.
You might be frozen.
He's a humble man, but I think he's frozen. So he's having some issues. My favorite line from Spaceballs is, even in the future, nothing works.
That's really about right.
So tell me some about what you got going on this summer, Rich.
Well, I just played the Rochester International Jazz Festival. A couple weeks before that, I was in Baltimore playing with the Baltimore Symphony for 4 days with Byron Stripling and Bobby Floyd, a pianist who also played on the Count Basie Orchestra. So there's a big Count Basie Orchestra connection among a lot of us. And then I'm doing an Eastman Jazz Camp for 2 weeks starting Monday. And just various, concerts and gigs. I've got a gig tonight with my trio Generations at a local venue here that's really fun to play in Rochester, and play with Byron some more on some symphony gigs, and just whatever. I've got other trio gigs and different things coming up this summer. But people can check out my website at richthompson.net, and I try to keep it updated as to when I'm performing.
Great. I'm trying to do some switching while we're talking. I heard you with Byron and Doc Severinsen.
That's right. We were down in right north of Atlanta. I think we played there, and then we played in a town south of Atlanta at that time, at that point. And I think Doc, I was trying to remember if he was 90 at that point and still playing his tail off.
He was at least 90, and he still had that great sound, that
Right.
giant sound. Harold, you back?
Yes, I can
All right.
see you and hear you.
All right. Well, let me punch you up. Let me just solo you. There he is, Mr. Harold Jones, the legendary. Oh no, he's frozen again. Every time I go to you, you freeze, man. What's up with that?
Maybe not go to him.
Yeah, we'll let him see if he can get in and out, but then I'll keep him in the corner here when he comes in till it works. We do the best we can, right?
Yeah, I mean it's technology.
Yeah. So how are the kids? How are the students these days? You've been teaching a long time, right?
Yes, yeah, I have. I've been at Eastman for 26 years.
And what have you noticed?
Well, I noticed that the students, the students get their music from a different source than they used to get it.
Mhm.
Because like we used to get it from records. And you'd have to get in your car and drive to the record store and shuffle through the jazz bins and see if there was a Basie record with Harold Jones on it. Now the students just pick up their phone and start thumbing something, one of the streaming services, and they download the cut in a fraction of the time.
Right.
And they don't have to put their right hand in their right pocket to pull out any additional funds to check out that music.
Didn't you always save your pennies to buy all these records when you were a kid?
Absolutely.
I mean, that's how we learned, right? Records were our textbooks.
Absolutely. And so, we have some terrific students, terrific musicians at Eastman, because we're fortunate in getting kind of the cream of the crop most of the time.
Right.
And if they're not the cream of the crop, we try to make them and mold them into the best musician that they can be. So, and let me say, in defense of that, not everybody is an early bloomer. Some people bloom after college when they get out in the real world and they start practicing 6 hours a day.
That's a good
point, and they
point,
know
man.
That they have rent to pay, and they've got put gas in the car and whatever.
That's a great point, because I was one of those guys. I got to North Texas as a beginner, basically, and was just totally overwhelmed. But everybody was fair to me. I knew where I stood, and I worked my ass off, and eventually became, worked as a professional musician most of my life. Harold, I don't know when you're in or out live, so I'm just you just chime in whenever you can, and that'll be great. Otherwise, we're just delighted to be in his presence. So how are the students these days? Are they good, better, excited,
No, no, no.
dedicated?
I think that they're just as dedicated. I think that they have to be because they're paying more money for college than ever. And I think that they're there. Listen, man, students are resilient. It's us old folks that get get grumpy. The students will do whatever it takes to realize their dream. I find. I mean, not some of them weed themselves out, of course, because it's
Mhm.
a high, it's a high intensity environment, just like North Texas was. Eastman, Manhattan School of Music, and all these schools that I'm going to forget to mention, but there's so many schools that the intensity level is so high now because you have those of us who've been on the road have come back to teach,
Mhm.
and we're letting these students know what it's going to take to make it out there. And as you know, there are more students out there graduating from college every year looking for the same jobs, just like in any field. And so, I, I don't think I could ever make a blanket statement that the students were worse now than they used to be, or
Mhm.
just as I
Well,
would never say, oh, match grip is not as good as traditional grip.
right.
These are
Well,
all
let's jump on that. Haven't we come to the point with grip where I know Steve Smith's thing is you have symmetrical. You can have match grip, asymmetrical. Or traditional.
right.
But the point is, there's a million ways to do it, and if it works for you, it works for you, as long as your mechanics are sound. And don't you think it's
Ab-
not like it was when we were kids, where there was a certain way you had to do it?
Absolutely. I mean, I think, getting off on tangents, talking about stuff like that is sort of akin to a couple trumpet players who always talk about mouthpieces and lead pipes instead of what did Clifford Brown play over a 2-5 that was
Hmm.
different than what Lee Morgan might have played, or maybe what was similar, because that's talking about music.
Yeah, and
To
also the
me, I
music
would
comes from the artist, don't you think? I mean, I was in the gear
absolutely,
business for a long time, as you well know, but you got recordings of Tony Williams playing Pisces, and he sounds exactly like Tony when his normal sound were old K's, which are kind of diametrically opposite each other.
absolutely, absolutely, and uh, uh, also, I mean, we have 100 years of music to digest nowadays. So
Right.
unless a student's doing something that's really obtuse and holding them back, there's so much to talk about when it comes to just vocabulary. For me, I'm a vocabulary guy. If you're going to speak the jazz vocabulary, I hope I can understand you.
Hmm.
And there's Clark Terry used to say there's 3 stages to learning to be a jazz musician. There's imitation, assimilation, and innovation. And he used to say this all the time, that we don't need everybody to be an innovator.
Hmm.
We need people that can assimilate the music and make music, with that vocabulary that they've assimilated. And so
Right.
I'm all about that with my students, as you will probably know from the videos that I've made for Vic Firth and Zildjian
Well, we're
recently.
going to see one in a minute. Harold, are you there with us now? See, I think he's having trouble with some bandwidth, so maybe he'll pop in and out when he can. Now he's back. Can you hear me, Harold? No. Oh well. Let's go to your video, man, because you sent me this one. Tell me what it is we're going to see.
All right. I think I sent you 2 or 3. So,
All right. Well, let me play it then. This is from Vic Firth, and then we'll talk about it later.
okay, great.
All right. Here we go.
next solo is from my book, Modern Jazz Solos for Drum Set. And this includes 10 solos in the style of, has a CD, and you can go on the publisher's website and download the MP3s. The one I'd like to talk about today is Roy's Ruse. Now, Roy Haynes is one of all of our favorite drummers. As of this recording, he just turned 97 this month, and there was an outpouring of love for Roy and for everything that he had given to drumming. Roy Haynes says he doesn't really ascribe to rudiments. Like, he doesn't practice them, he doesn't really know his rudiments. But I found that every once in a while you have to use a rudiment to express the musical idea that Roy played. So we'll find out more about this as you listen and watch me play Roy's Ruse. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so let's talk about Roy. Roy's Ruse from my Modern Jazz Solos for Drum Set book. This is a complex solo because I took this solo from several different places. And so there's a lot of different moods that Roy Haynes sets on playing a solo like this. So we should probably discuss those in depth. Let's start with the first part of this.
Okay, Rich, I'm going to stop it there because I just want to give everybody a taste of it.
Great, thanks.
And they could go to the Vic Firth website and see that, right?
That's right. Yep.
Because there's an in-depth analysis of Roy Haynes after that. You know the old joke about did it and did it?
No.
Max Roach went to New York and did it. Philly Joe went to New York and did it. Roy Haynes went to New York and did it and did it and did it.
That's a good.
Now, for you uninitiated, that's a Roy Haynesism. Did it and 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 did it did it and did it did, which he kind of owned.
Which you heard me play on that solo.
Yeah, it was in there. That's why I mentioned it. So right, you think that vocabulary is a giant part of learning how to play all kinds of music, right?
Well, I do. I mean, imagine getting on a plane. You're 21 years old. You fly to Paris, France, and you make up your own language and try to navigate yourself just to get dinner. I mean, it's just going to be a laugh. But in music, many times, even teachers tell their students, "Well, just do whatever you do because that's going to be the strongest. That's going to be the strongest vocabulary you'll ever have."
Mm-hmm.
That negates 100 years worth of music for me.
Yeah, if you get together with a bunch of musicians you don't know, the best thing to do is find what they all do best together, right?
Right.
Hey, we're joined by somebody new here. Yeah, so I was watching and I invited him in, and his name is Sean Kennedy.
Hey guys.
Sean.
Hey guys, can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you just fine. Sean's
Perfect.
been a guest on my Drummer Nation many times, and he did the Downfall of Paris for a whole ensemble. Where do you live, Sean?
Right outside of Philadelphia.
So what's going on? You guys know each other, Rich, Sean?
No, I don't think we met before.
Nope. I don't
All
think
right.
I've ever met you, Sean.
Pleasure.
Yep.
So, what are you doing this summer, Sean? By the way, this isn't an interview show. You just jump in whenever you want. It's just like a hang.
That's fine, man. Next week I'm doing a big band recording actually with a brand new big band called the Garden Jazz Orchestra. We're doing 10 charts right here in Philly, and we're doing old school, the band in a circle, some isolation, and we're going to cross our fingers and hope it swings correctly and we can keep everything and release it.
Live to 2-track, is that basically what it is?
Yeah, basically. We're going to go old school with it and not do lots of isolation or anything. Maybe some overdubs for percussion, but that might be it.
Okay. Harold, you back with us? Poor Harold.
Well,
every time I throw it to him,
Sean, if you're going to do those overdubs yourself, make sure you get the double.
Right, exactly. And I think the band leader might be watching, so I'm glad you said that.
Yeah, you can send me 10% of that.
Excellent. I'll do that. Just give me your address.
For mentioning it.
Perfect.
What else you guys got going on?
Well, I would like to just say, since you just played my video, that they actually did 3 videos from that book, and if I can find it here,
yeah, plug the book by all means.
just to show them. This is the name of the book. It's called Modern Jazz Solos for Drum Set, and this is 10 solos. It has a CD in the back if your students even know what that is any longer. But they can go on the website and download MP3s. And so they actually did Foster's Fair, which was to Al Foster, the first one in the book. And they did Roy's Ruse, the second one. And then we did Adam's Air for Adam Nussbaum. And they're on both. Zildjian has an outreach thing where they compile these video lessons, and so as does Vic Firth. It's one company now virtually, so I hope I don't get in trouble for saying that. But
no, I think everybody knows that Zildjian bought Vic Firth.
Yeah. So any student or anybody could find those videos on those 2 websites.
Sean, you're an author too, right?
Yes, sir.
What's your stuff?
I got a beginner book that I wrote with Liberty DeVito. It's called Rock Solid Drums. It takes you from here's sticks to doing a groove. Then on the other end, we have a book for people returning to drum set called I Used to Play Drums. And then a couple things in between. I have some etudes for kids, jazz improv stuff. So kind of runs the gamut.
Cool. Well, I got a book too, man.
Tell us about it, Michael.
It's called Contemporary Linear Drumming, and it's on Hudson Digital. And it's something I wrote a good while ago, but it held up, and I thought, Rob was nice enough to put it out there. So I'm happy about that. Harold has a couple of books. They're not method books, though. We're talking about Harold because he's trying to get in. He's in and out, and he's having some issues there. But he's got one called The Singing Drummer. Isn't that what it's called? Anybody know? Rich?
Yeah, I think that is. The Singer's Drummer, something like that.
Singer's Drummer, right. Not the singing drummer.
Book. Right. Yeah. That'd be a different book.
That'd be a different book. Because in addition to working with Basie, he worked with so many singers, not the least of which was the Tony Bennett, who just retired.
Oh, yeah. So, I got to see those guys a few times in Atlantic City and Philly with that particular group, and they killed every time. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. I never got to see him with Tony. My wife did, though. Hey, Harold, I see you trying to get in and out. If you're ever in, just speak up, and we'll make sure we hear you.
Also, I was going to tell Harold, if he's having trouble with the video part, just audio it.
Yeah, that'll work too.
So that we can have his voice.
Oh, Michael, you know what? On this, I just thought of something to dovetail with Harold here. That new recording I'm doing, I wrote a blues in honor of Harold, and it's called Stickbag Jones, and that's what's going on. That's one of the tunes on this new album. And I've actually sent Harold some of the clips over the last few months, and he's given me a thumbs up. So
I'm sure he has. So that's great. Not only on the name, but the fact that he must dig your playing too.
Yeah, Harold is a great friend and supporter of mine.
Yeah, he's a great friend.
Yeah, as of a lot of us.
Yep.
He sure is.
It's funny. I'll have a Zoom meeting, and Harold will come on, and people will just be, "Oh my God, it's Harold Jones," and they do the, "We're not worthy," or "You're the reason I play drums," or all kinds of. Everybody gives it up for Harold because he's just a living legend.
Exactly.
He is.
Well,
and I must say that you guys got to know Harold carries 2 different stick bags.
Tell us.
One has drumsticks in it, and the other one has golf irons and woods, and he's great at both of those, and great fun to hang with at both of those things.
He told me at the front door he's got his golf clubs and his drums, and one or the other goes out of the house depending on the trip. well, let's hear from him, because I got a video I punched up from Harold with the Basie Band, so we're going to play that now. All right, if you're not jumping out of your chair listening to that, there's something wrong with you, man.
Hitting 12.
Tell us about what do you got. Respond to that. Either one.
Well, it's when I was on the band. I mean, that's obviously one of the two song forms that the Basie Band played. They played blues, which that was, and they played rhythm changes, and then a few other things like built off of Killer Joe and some other things like that. But most of the tunes were built off of those two song forms, the blues and rhythm. And that's some impeccable Harold Jones right there.
Sean?
Yeah, it's just incredible, man. It seems so easy when you listen to it, but when you try to do it yourself, it's a lot more difficult than it seems, I think, that style.
I was focused in on his right hand. You might be a little loud, Sean, if you can handle that.
I'm too loud?
Just a touch. But I was focused on his right hand because it swings so hard, man. And it's just, it either happens or it doesn't. And when it doesn't, it's painfully obvious. And when it does, you just can't sit still. And
right.
I don't know that you can put your finger on exactly what that is. Everybody talks about how you do this with your right hand, the sounds you get. Man, it's all of that. And some guys can sit down and have a big beat, and they own their beat, and they just kill it. And that's Harold.
Absolutely. And there's always that thing with Harold. People don't, especially young students, don't realize how many quarter notes Harold plays in that right hand, as opposed to just playing like a method book and playing day-ga-day, 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 day-ga-day. I mean, so much of it, he's just locked that quarter note in with the bass player. And
let's not forget Freddie Freddie Green on the guitar, man. You listen to that, and he was sort of the straw boss of the rhythm section. I think Harold told me that at one point. For everybody who doesn't know, he plays downstrokes on a rhythm guitar, chink 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 chink, almost exclusively, and it just kills, man. I mean, you get a great bass player and a great drummer and Basie, of course, and they used to call that swinging you into bad health.
Yeah, and his strings were incredibly high, so that, you know, the only thing you ever heard him do that was broken, any type of broken chords, was when he invented the whole thing on Little Darling. You know?
Tell us about it. I mean, people don't know what that is.
Oh, Little Darling, where he goes ba 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 bee, ba 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 bee, ba bee boo dee, and then here comes Freddie, bo doo doo dee da.
Right.
And that's the only time you really heard that. I mean, I shook, and the incredible thing too is I shook his hand when I met him at the Blue Note. This must have been in the 80s when Byron was on the band, and Byron introduced me. Byron Stripling, the guy that I work for, introduced me to Harold, and he had the softest, warmest handshake. And you would think it would be all calloused up and everything.
You said Harold, you meant Freddie?
I meant Freddie, sorry.
Yeah.
Freddie, when I met Freddie. It was like meeting your grandfather. I mean, he was so kind, and his handshake was so warm, you know, just a warm. Same way when I met Ralph McDonald in the late 70s. I mean, he played conga on so many records, so many commercials and things in New York.
No calluses.
But he didn't play hard because they had a microphone stuffed up in the conga drum in the studio.
Wow, because a lot of guys,
some
like
insight into having
a lot of Cubanos, who are congueros, man, their hands are like leather.
Totally. I mean, so it's just some insight into how some of these masters got these sounds and not overworking to get them.
Yeah. Even Buddy said the older he got, the easier it was.
Yeah.
Just to let it go, It's honed over the years. Harold, can you hear us now? Harold, you got us? I see him now, but I don't hear him. Oh, well. Listen, I'm not going to keep you guys very long. It's just a brief show, and it's not really it's a Seinfeld kind of show. Like, I think if Don Bennett said you put two or more drummers in a room together and before long, fun breaks out. So I thought, I don't want to do a solo show by myself every week. Who cares what I have to say? Let me get some of my friends to pop in and out. Very informal. Like, I saw Sean was watching. I said, send him the code. Here, jump on in, man. So for everybody who's here, please keep an eye out for this. We'll get Harold on another time when we can do him justice. My friends, Rich Thompson from Eastman and Sean Kennedy from, what do we say, Philly?
You got it.
Yeah. All right, gentlemen. Well, I'm gonna see if I can do the switching here and get. Oh no, I'm gonna go to a commercial. I didn't do any commercials, so let me do a couple of spots, and then we're on, and then it'll be out. All right. So thanks everybody for watching. Let me get to me first here. Here we go. Thank you everybody for dropping in. A lot of people don't watch it in live because, frankly, I never know if it's going to be on. It says most Wednesdays because today's Thursday. I mean, we don't have to answer to anybody. We change it whenever we need to. But most people do watch it in post. So it'll be on Facebook, on a lot of Facebook pages who are my affiliates, and it'll also be on a YouTube channel for Drummer Nation. And with that, I'm going to show you a few of our friends and then take it out gracefully. Thank you again for my guest today. Take care.
Hey everybody, how you doing? This is Bobby A, and today I wanted to tell you about how much I really love the Hudson Music digital app. Okay, now, check it out. It's an app that you can get for your device, and you can purchase books from the Hudson Music digital store and have them stored right on your device. The great thing about it is you always have it with you, and any content that might be video related or music related is right there at your fingertips. It's a wonderful resource.
Memphis Drum Shop is the world's premier provider of percussion instruments.
With 6 showrooms of gear, mycymbal.com, the Memphis Gong Chamber, and a first-rate repair department, turn to Memphis Drum Shop for all your percussion needs.